So what this video is actually about, now that we've gotten all that out of the way, so there's this new video game uh that is going to be released, and let's see, it's coming out in, oh, I thought I had a thing up for it. Oh, I almost got there, but not quite. Oh, good heavens. So on the 18th of this month will be a new Prince of Persia game. Okay. And oh, so Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. Now, this is the first game that we have received that Prince of Persia fans have. Yes, I'm a fan of Prince of Persia as well. And I love the movie. I don't care what anybody says. Which, in fact, when I was doing research for this video, I noticed that a lot of Prince of Persia fans and gaming fans enjoyed the movie. And while the reviewers were trash talking the movie and they went in defense mode, the commenters were going in defense mode and like, hey, hang on. So we're going to talk about that. Um, so Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is the first Prince of Persia game since 2013. So for 10 years, we haven't received a game. Now, the last game was actually a remake of the 1993 game, The Shadow and the Flame. Okay. So in total, and actually, I guess I was getting conflicting uh news, I guess you would, because apparently it's to be announced that there's going to be a remake of Sands of Time. I saw some tidbits here and there, but then there were also places that said that this particular game was scrapped. So if anybody knows anything about that, you can, of course, say something in the comment section. I have no problem with that because, again, I was trying to get an actual, and I kept getting conflicting information. And, but so let me see something here real quick. So Prince of Persia came out in 1989. And then we had Shadow and the Flame in 1993, which then, of course, was rebooted. And um, then there was the, in 1999, there was the awful Prince of Persia 3D. It was so bad. I remember this game. In fact, if you look, um, yeah, it received mixed of reviews. Um, well-made graphics, but yeah, the graphics were fine and everything. It had rough character models, difficult camera effects, and unresponsive controls. Yeah, the controls did not want to. That was one thing that I remember. Um, and in the action, that's one thing that with Prince of Persia, you're there's always the action. The first one was basically just you're getting out of the dungeon because it's timed. You got to get out of the dungeon, save the girl. And the controls were just bad. It was like you would push the button and it just took forever for it to actually respond. I had this Indiana Jones game for the DS And it wasn't the Lego. There was one. Everybody wants to say that there's only the Lego Indiana Jones game for the DS. No, there was one, and I think it was for the Wii game. My dad has the Wii Indiana Jones game, and it just never responded. I would tell him, shoot your gun, shoot your gun, shoot your gun, and it was like he never did. And so he's just standing there getting shot, and it's like, oh. Yeah, the controls were just horrendous. The graphics were okay. I mean, like we got a 3D game, but it was just like um yeah, this one was just terrible. Um when you can't play the game, it's not fun. I yeah, there were a lot of those games that went to 3D in 1998, 1999, and of course that's the thing about Ocarina of Time is that it was so revolutionary because of the fact that it went to 3D. And I I say it all the time on this channel. I'm a big Legend of Zelda fan and everything, but at the same time, move on from that game. If it's your first Zelda game that you played, I understand holding on to it and embracing it and everything. But at the same time, there are other games. It was revolutionary at its time, but there are other 3D games. And that's what cracks me up so much is that I was reading in the comments section in the in for this one, and there were I have never seen so much hype for one game. I get it. We're getting a new game after a decade, but there were commenters that were saying, and I couldn't figure out if they were bots or like sock accounts or what, and they were saying stuff like, well, Prince of Persia fans you can never please, you can never make them happy, this, that, and the other. And then they would follow it up with just look at 2008. Okay. So the 2008 game, yeah, let's look at 2008. The 2008 game went up against three Guitar Hero games, which one of them was the Aerosmith Guitar Hero, which um that led up to the Green Day and Beatles Guitar Hero, but everybody was drunk on Guitar Hero. And of course, Mario Kart was taking over. You also had that Dance Dance Revolution. And does anybody remember the Mortal Kombat versus DC universe? I remember there were uh gaming parties just to watch Batman beat the living shit out of Scorpion. I was there, Gandalf. I went to a lot of those parties. Just, oh my gosh, that game was so much fun. When I was doing research on what gaming was in 2008, I had totally forgotten about that game. But as soon as I read the title, I was like, my gosh, I would have played that game again. That game was so fun. Now, here's the other thing to understand about video games. Okay, because obviously these people do not understand, is that you could have the most amazing storyline, amazing plot line, and known to existence in the video game industry, but the gameplay sucks, such as Prince of Persia 3D. Controls don't connect, they're sluggish, they're lagging, and the graphics could be okay, or they're just awful. They don't um work with what the franchise is. Um, I remember when Mario was changed to 3D, a lot of people weren't sure how to take that. But you know what? Because of the game that he was changed to 3D, it fit, and people immediately accepted it. So, that's the thing. And there's a lot of times where the gameplay and graphics are, you have beautiful graphics, absolutely stunning graphics. The gameplay works. There's no sluggish gameplay, everything, but the storyline is trash. Do you remember the game Nosferatu that I talked about? Okay, the funny thing is it gets a pass because that final boss works. Okay, some of those horror video games, the storyline is, lack of better words, is meh, but the background graphics are stunning, beautiful, because you're running through like old haunted mansions and everything. So the backgrounds are um well done. And a lot of times you have like ghosts running past and floating past, I should say. Everything. And and then they have creative bosses to come at you with, and who are attacking you and everything. So yeah, when you look at a lot of those old horror games, the storyline is not that great, but they get a pass because, especially with that final boss, it works. Because Nosferatu has nothing to do with Nosferatu, for one thing. But I mean, the fact that there's these two teenagers who run off, they get lost, and the girl is kidnapped, and then he just runs through yeah, it's terrible. It's really terrible. But that final boss is everything. So when you look at it, when you look at Prince of Persia and you look at the 2008 games, I mean, Guitar Hero, we were all drunk on Guitar Hero. I mean, I would go to a friend's house and I'd be playing and especially when Aerosmith, come on. You had the world tour, you had Aerosmith, you had tour. I mean, and the thing is, another thing to think about, which I had completely forgotten, is that a lot of games were translated into DS. And didn't there were a lot of people who were turned off by games because of the DS play. I had Broken Sword, and I remember talking about this on this channel, was that Broken Sword I first played on the DS and I hated it. I would have never looked at it again, except I saw a review where somebody listed all the different platforms that it had. And I was like, wait a minute, there's a PC version? Because I didn't realize how far when it was first released. It was released in 1996. I didn't know that. And so I bought it on Steam and played it, and I was like, this is so much better. The fact that people were actually playing Myst on DS, it's like, no, don't do that. So there were people who were playing Prince of Persia, that 2008 Prince of Persia, and it was actually under a different name. Let's see, what was it? What was it? What was it? I always forget. I think it's the Forgotten King, the Fallen King. Um, and I actually had that one. It was terrible. It was absolutely, in fact, I actually got stuck, and I mean literally stuck on a boss. I would tell the prince to attack, and he would just stand there. So he's getting beat up by this boss, and I'm like, so the controls were not good on that DS. So if you're introduced to the 2008 Prince of Persia game through DS, because DS was still popular in 2008. Yeah. Um, but uh, to, to bring up 15 years ago, okay, Legend of Zelda there are Legend of Zelda fans who still disown Skyward Sword even after they fixed it on Switch. It's like because they are so fixated, it's just embedded in their DNA now to um dis disown this game. It's just because yes, trying to use the Wii system, the controls were terrible. I remember trying to use those controls and they were bad. Well, Nintendo fixed it when they moved it over to the Switch. And people are like, no, no, it didn't work. It didn't work. And they refuse to accept this new game. Go harass them for a while. Oh my gosh. Oh, jeez. And what's funny about these, I hate using this word, but with these shills who will go to the newest thing and they think they're doing something, but they really aren't. They're just being annoying. It's like it's something new, so they go and they defend it and protect it and all of this stuff. They don't know anything about it. And so they attack the real fans who are asking the real questions and actually saying, and all this. It's like, what are you trying to accomplish here? Because what's funny about it is that when I was going through comment sections and everything, and I'm seeing these shills going around, and I don't know that I could even call them shills. Like I said, it was like they, I couldn't tell if they were sock accounts or what have you. It's just this game is so hyped up. I understand that reviewers are paid to hype up the game. I get it. In the early 2000s, I watched a lot of infomercials and they're using the buzzwords like, wait, there's more. And I was skeptical at first, but I I feel that, after watching several of these um yeah, it's just like, oh my gosh. And but in the comments section, when it's still going on for this game, you gotta question it a little bit. And especially when they don't seem to know the game or the franchise or anything like that, they're just attacking to attack. It's like something's wrong here. And I don't blame the reviewer at all. They don't have anything to do with it. No, no, the reviewer has nothing to do with it. They did their job. They're gonna get paid. And so see, because like I was 7 years old when the first game was re yeah, I'm old as hell. I was 7, and I remember playing. It was a timed game. The storyline was that there was this prince, and he won the heart of the princess. Now, these games are set in medieval Persia. And so the Sultan was off at war. Evil Vizier wanted to take over the throne, his plan was to marry the princess. So when he found out that she was in love with this mystery prince, he locked her in her room and the prince was put in the dungeon. So your goal was to get out of the dungeon and save her. And so my generation who grew up on these games and watched the prince grow up into uh the mature warrior that he is. The thing is, well, that's basically it, is that he went from being this this skinny kid in a jumpsuit into this mature warrior. And you know, several of these uh several of these reviewers were calling him Prince Dastan. And he didn't have a name in the games. That was the mystery. That was the beauty of it. Gamers didn't care that he didn't have a name. You know, you had a bunch of other heroes like Link, who, you know, this swordsman who protected Zelda, and there were several others that I was too busy playing that one. And then you had Indiana Jones who came on, and you had this uh oh shoot, Guybrush, which is a goofy name. It's a fictional name. But and then of course like Metroid, and you go down the list of all these different Sonic the Hedgehog, and so when you go down the list of all of these different video game characters and the heroes that they spawned, and and like in Mortal Kombat when you have all these different, and those ones that are a bit, like Ninja Turtles and those, why not have the beauty of it was that you had this character that didn't have a name. Here's this mystery prince who's saving people, and he's like this acrobatic prince who is um skilled in combat and military, what have you, and this, that, and the other. Well, the fact that he's just the prince, that was good enough for us. The fact that he was just so mysterious was just, I mean, we all loved it. That was great, you know. Why do you have to, I don't understand why it is that you have to know every single thing about everything. It's like, well, I have to know the backstory now. I have to know his name. I have to know this. I have to know that. I need to know. Why? What's the i- why is it such a problem for you to not have that like mysterious thing, you know? You're the reason the comic book industry is dying. It's like everything has to be so obvious. It's like, why are people so stupid around Clark Kent? Why can't they see that it's Superman? Why is it that because he just wears the glasses, he blends in? It's like, oh man. Yeah. So, but yeah, he didn't have a name until the movie came out, and they called him Dastan. And well, now this game changed the name and to I forgot what the name was. Let's see. Let me see really quick. Uh, uh, I think it's pronounced Gassen, and I'm sorry if I say that incorrectly. Now, at first I was like, well, why didn't they just use Dastan? Okay, I looked it up, and it turns out that in Middle Eastern culture, a Dastan is a storyteller of epic poems. And so I understand why they changed it. I don't have a problem with that. And because at first I was like, but he already has a name. He has named Dastan. So why didn't you just keep that? Because when I first looked it up, it, there were like three different websites that just said it's a storyteller. I was like, so why not keep it? But then there were like, I kept looking, and it said that there are Dastan is someone who sits down and tells these epics, and so I get it, I understand, and I understand why it was changed. So it makes sense to me now. And so, and now that they gave the prince a name because of the movie, I don't care what because now they're putting all these articles out, and it's like now that he has a name after all these years, and it's like shut up. They gave him a name in the movie, so now of course they're just going to continue on with that. Don't sugarcoat this crap. You know, it's pretty much because of the movie now. I, seriously, because now people are comfortable with the fact that he has a name. They're Ubisoft is just stuck with it now. Because there were people in the comment sections who were calling him Prince Dastan. And they're probably going to continue calling him Prince. They're like, no, that's not his name. And, you know, because that's what happens. When you try to change something, it's not going to work. But me personally, knowing the background of the name, of Dastan, I'm fine with it. I get it, you know. And so I mean, but when they're trying so hard to make it out like, oh, we're going to detach from the movie. So let's talk about the movie. Okay, the mo the movie bombed in the box office. And there were not every reviewer, but there were a few reviewers who were trying to trash talk the movie and basically make it out like they, they were parroting the concept of, well, video game movies don't work and all that. That's getting tiresome. It's getting tiresome because, especially with Prince of Persia, it has its flaws. Yes, not getting around that. You know what? Star Wars does too. And I mean the 1977 one. As a fan of the original Star Wars. But when it comes to the Prince of Persia movie, I mean, like, Jake Gyllenhaal's armor looked like it did in the video games. The tone of the movie fit the video game, the dark tones and all that. The dagger looked like the dagger in, yeah, I mean, like, there was just so much stuff. I remember watching the movie and I liked it so much that I bought it, and then my brother borrowed it and he's watching it. He saw elements from the games that I missed. You had that coil thing from I don't remember which game that's from. And they used that and they used that in such a good way that yeah, oh my gosh. But I'm not going to sit here and try to make you like the movie. You can No, I mean Jake Gyllenhaal has even said that he's disappointed in his performance in it, which kind of makes me a little sad. It's like you did a fun movie. I'm kind of sad that you didn't like it, but sometimes people say that and then they look at it again later on in life and they're like, "Oh, yeah, it wasn't that bad." So maybe that'll happen. But yeah, there were a lot of people, a lot of gamers and a lot of Prince of Persia fans who were defending the movie and pretty much saying, uh, what? Because there are Resident Evil, are they still making those movies? Because that's like the top gaming movie, it seems like, the gaming series. And of course, there's Tomb Raider, the one with Angelina Jolie that matters. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so again, it has its flaws and everything, but the fact that they kept with the dark tones, the dark and gritty tones of the games, and Jake Gyllenhaal's look fit the character of Prince and the Prince, I should say. Prince is a musician, may he rest in peace. And and which I like Prince. I was very sad when he passed away. But and so they had all those elements and what's funny to me is that it was like when they did Aladdin, the live action Aladdin, and they showed that part where Aladdin, the actor who played Aladdin, not coming up with his name right now, but that whole scene where he's running around on the rooftops, I was like, that's the same acrobatic choreography that Jake Gyllenhaal had to do in Prince of Persia. So I was like, come on now. Am I the only one that saw that? Apparently, because they're trying to forget that movie. I won't let them. Apparently, others won't let them either. But so yeah, I'm not gonna look, I like the movie and yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal has said that he was disappointed in his performance, and but I'm noticing that he's fallen into stage production. Yeah, he's big into stage now, so and good for him. And I wish him well on that. And but everything about that movie, again, flawed. Every movie that comes out of Hollywood is flawed. Even the silent films have flaws. You can go through and you can look and there are flaws. But anyway, I think I've said my piece on that. And just don't sit there and just because you don't like it, don't sit there and try to make other people despise it. Because I'm going to tell you right now, yes, it bombed in the box office, but so did Labyrinth. So go over to the Labyrinth fan base and try and get them to hate it, because that's not going to work so well in your favor. So, but um, this basically, so let's look at this new game. Now that I've talked up a storm and everything,  'cause, 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 'c The Lost Crown, coming out in 4 days, um, introduces Sargon, this new character, Sargon. Now, at first, I thought that this was like a new generation prince, like the prince's son, nephew, grandson or whatever. No, you're not playing the prince. What? Um, yeah. As soon as the reviewer said, "Now you're not playing the prince," I was like, "Wait, let's back it up. What are you talking about? You always play the prince." So I had to do some research. Now, on the official website for Prince of Persia, they're basically just saying, you can download the demo version and everything, which I don't have an interest in doing. And they don't really tell you a lot about the game, which I can understand that because they want it to be a big surprise. I understand that. I get it. And basically buy this and you'll find out. I get it, marketing. I took business classes. I totally understand. Um, the thing is that this particular character is introduced as a young member of a warrior clan that is known as the Immortals. Okay, so they are also known as the Persian Immortals. So Ubisoft was trying to insert a bit of history, and which I give them credit for. The problem is, yeah, this is where we have an issue, um, because there, this is where fights were happening in the comment section. Okay, there were people who were trying to explain their culture, and these accounts were like flipping out and, trying to defend a game that they haven't played yet. And I love it how they get caught and then they're like, well, you haven't played the game yet. Neither have you. Okay. Playing the demo is not the full game. Trust me. I remember when you would get, you would send off for a game on the back of a cereal box, back in the early 90s, and you would get the demo version, not the full game. We had several of those way back when. Um, yeah, you would get the freeware, not the full version. Anyway, so these people who were trying to explain their culture and try to say, well, but here's the problem with because of this and that, everything, and then of course they were being silenced and all this. So, and of course you can correct me with anything that I say incorrectly because I'm a dumb American. Because this is entering territory that I'm not as familiar with in history. So, um, and I have no problem admitting that. So, Persian immortals is something that Herodotus had an account of. He describes the Persian immortals as being heavy infantry. They provided a professional corps of the Persian armies and were kept constantly at strength of exactly 10,000 men. There are depictions and they show a lineup. There are modern reconstructions. There have been, because in fact, there are pictures from the 70s, going back in the 70s and everything, in ceremonial dress. And um, so it further states in Herodotus's account that the unit's name stemmed from the custom that every killed member, seriously wounded, or sick was immediately replaced with a new one, maintaining the core as a cohesive entity with a constant strength, hence Persian immortals. So, um, with that being said, this character, Sargon, wouldn't leave because it says that he has to travel to rescue the prince, which we'll get to in a second. And I think I was starting to talk about that earlier and then got caught up talking about something else. I interrupt myself way too much. It's ridiculous. Okay, it's a bad habit. So here's the thing is with the training of the Persian immortals, according to what I just read, Sargon would not leave. He would stay because of this 10,000 um, members. Now, again, I give credit to Ubisoft for wanting to put history into their game, but it's almost like they just inserted it, not doing any kind of research at all. And they should have done the research. Yeah. See, um, like when, which one was that? Um, when Boris Karloff's uh um The Mummy was released, people didn't know as much about Egyptian history. They didn't know that much. I mean, King Tut had been found 10 years earlier. So, um, I mean, basically, the names that they had found, they were they were going on. I mean, like Moon and all that, and Imhotep, those names were used in the movie. And so, to be honest, I love the Brenda Fraser version, but you know, when 1999 rolled around, Stephen Summers could have changed those names. He could have. And but again, I'm sure he was staying true to the Karloff version, and I have no problem with that. But this is this is what I mean is like cherry picking, plucking from history and everything. And I almost feel like that's what happened here is plucking and you got to be careful with that. I mean, plucking names is one thing. I mean, sure, you're going to have a historian screeching about it. I mean, I was laughing in one of my podcast episodes about it, how people were looking up Imhotep and they're like, wait a minute, he was not corrupt, he was not an evil guy. And it's like, no, he was immortalized. They were trying to make him a god when he died. People from all over the known world loved him. It's just a movie. Yeah, he was an actual person and he was loved for his accomplishments. Um, but this is a little different. It's part of the culture. So, and that's why there were people in the comment sections trying to explain that, and they were being silenced by all of these other accounts that were defending a game that they haven't played yet. Yeah. And that's the funny part is that then they'll say, well, you haven't played the game yet. Yeah, neither have you. This other part sticks with me. It says that Sargon must travel to the cursed city of, and I'm sorry if I say this incorrectly, Mount Quaff to rescue the kidnapped prince. Now, I looked up this, and it's a legendary place in Middle Eastern mythology. Now, Middle Eastern mythology, I'm not familiar with at all. And so I was doing research on it, and from what it sounds like, at first, it's a place where the jinn live, and I get from everything that I was reading, I guess it's again how I'm understanding. Please correct me. I have no problem with that. Again, this is territory I'm unfamiliar with. From what it sounds like in the places that I looked, and I have like this two large mythology books, and they didn't have any information on it, which was surprising to. I was disappointed. I was like, you don't have anything. They had information on jinns, but they didn't have, or on the jinn. I want to say it. I want to be respectful and say it right. And so it says here like Mount Quaff, again, I'm sorry if I say it correctly, is a concept that seems far away, a concept that can never be reached. Um, Contains jinn, angels, phoenixes, and dragons. Um, it is about becoming the perfect human being, which signifies reaching toward the inner self. There is a story about the phoenix like this. Birds are heading toward the the mount to find the phoenix and ask for salvation. So is it like um is it kind of like Judgment Day? Something like that? Um that's kind of what I was getting, but nothing here really screamed cursed. So I don't understand how the prince could be sent could could be there. I mean, and I guess that there was a name used and it was of a king and it was and somebody was trying to explain that the king was respected, but in the game it they used him as an evil boss and he was just this person was just dogpiled. And And people were saying, are you expecting historic accuracy in a video game? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how many of these people actually went after the movie Napoleon for historic accuracy? But when it's a video game, see, you cherry pick. You cherry pick all the time. Seriously. They are defending their culture. That's what they're doing. They're trying to make you understand um, this is a total disrespect to their culture. And see, like I said, so I guess even with names, you have to be careful. So what I said was null and void. What I said earlier was null and void. Um, when I said names are one thing. Uh, yeah. So I can't find where this legendary place, because I don't want to say it again, and because I feel like I'm butchering it, and I'm sorry, is cursed. You can't just say that something from mythology is cursed. You can't just do that. You can't just make that up. But that's an Americanism. That's what me being an American. That's what they do. It's like I want to sell a thing, so I'm going to say this just to jazz it up a little bit. And no, you can't do that because then the people from of that culture are going to get pissed off, and that's what it looks like right now is happening. Now, before people get really all up in my business, when it comes to Sargon, I don't mind the character, or I didn't at first, because, all right, hear me out. Okay, because when I see what they say about him, Sargon was described as a gifted young warrior, is acrobatic, fast, and agile. Okay. Um, the team hoped to modernize the image of the franchise using this character. Okay. Usually when I hear modernize anymore, that gives red flags like crazy. It's like, oh great, another thing that's going to destroy. Yeah. And but here's the thing. When it comes to the prince, hey, remember when the prince looked like this and then looked like this and then just continued to look like this? That's why Jake Gyllenhaal was chosen. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal bulked himself up for the movie and he grew his hair for the movie. And now all of a sudden, this is what the prince looks like. What the hell? So in 1989, he was a blonde kid in a jumpsuit running around all over the dungeon trying to get out. And then he changes, yeah, by we get this warrior kid looking like this. See, the creator talked about the prince and he said that his character traits is he's skilled in acrobatics and combat. He is either of a royal line or associated with royalty. Yeah, because I think it was Sands of Time where he was adopted into the royal family, which the movie showcased. Um, he's uh, he further describes the character as a version of the trickster, and let's see. I mean, like he's like this total daredevil, this total military train. He's got all of this stuff. So basically, what they did is they took elements of of what we already know of the prince which has been built up over the last 35 plus years, because he has grown up over the years. We have watched him grow up, and they just injected it into this kid, this new character. So he's acrobatic, agile, and all this stuff. It's like you just introduced him. And you figure that by making him this Persian immortal, that they don't even know what that means. I think they like did a quick cliff note read and decided, well, that's good enough. I actually feel sorry for this character. 'Cause it's like, and because especially when they say The Lost Crown is an original story set in the Prince of Persia universe, I don't think it is. Because Sargon went through a Captain America complex of having things injected into him that wasn't even his. I'm waiting for for Tony Stark to come in. Everything that's yours came out of a bottle. All of your special powers came from a bottle. And why does the prince need, how is the prince kidnapped? I've seen a lot of people talk about how they would come home from school and they would play the games, they would um they played like um the Forgotten Sands and Two Thrones, Warrior Within, Sands of Time. They played these games over and over and over again. They forgot their homework. They wouldn't even play. These games ran, they loved the gameplay. And yet it's like because of all the flashy colors and all the, and all this stuff, it's like new game, I'm buying it. So you're falling for the, but wait, there's more. I saw this in the early 2000s with Billy Mays when he was still alive. Don't fall for it. Again, I'll throw it up here. The prince used to look like this. He was the acrobat. Remember when he was the daredevil that went up against an entire army? I remember. I also remember I remember the controversy when there was the Dark Prince. Remember the Dark Prince? And I remember there was like this whole thing when the Dark Prince came out, and actually Dark Prince came out because that was in Shadow and the Flame. And he came back again. I don't remember what game that was. Does it say what game that was? I have a bunch of tabs here, so let's see. Let's see. Yeah, appeared in both The Shadow and the Flame and Two Thrones. And there was that amazing um poster where it had the one side of the prince and the other side of that uh dark or shadow man, they also say here. Um and I just remember because in Ocarina of Time, of course, you fight uh Dark Link. Well, here's the thing is Shadow and the Flame came out in 1993. When did Ocarina of Time come out? Yeah, there's a 5-year stretch there. And then of course with Two Thrones came out. Let's see, that one came out. Two Thrones was 2005. Um, so let's see, when was, because in Twilight Princess, there was that whole cutscene that was so weird, and it it was like the weirdest cutscene ever. And but it showed Dark Link in it. And but that came out the next year in 2006. So even then, it came out before. But the thing about it, what I was going to say is that uh with Dark Prince or Shadow Man is that this was the whole point was for the prince to go from being this immature trickster, this childish um this childish character, and transform into a mature warrior and fighter. And that was the whole point, especially in that last game where Shadow Man shows up, which was the two thrones. And so that is where you really saw where the character matured. And with Link, all you did was fight this guy. The whole there was no, I mean, he just shows up and you fight him. There was no anything, no point to it or anything. And it's an annoying fight. And but I remember when the two thrones came out, and Legend of Zelda fans were just like, "Oh my gosh, you snatched from it." And it's like Dark Link came, I mean, Dark Prince came first, like long before. Not everything is about Legend of Zelda coming from a Zelda fan. Oh my gosh. Oh, good Lord. Oh, but so basically, they turned the prince into a damsel in distress. He is now the princess who needs to be saved. How do you turn a character into this that was once this into somebody? This is your way of modernizing? Look, you could um insert a new character. I have no problem with Sargon. As weird as that may sound. Okay, but the prince was an established character, and there are a lot of people, a lot of gamers, Prince of Persia gamers in general. There were gamers who they may have played one of the games and they were pissed. So, I mean, it makes no sense. Why would you change the formula so much for one character? Now, as for Sargon, okay, because I'm sure that people are going to be flooding the comments section if they haven't already. Okay, when it comes to Sargon, um, yeah, his backstory is a little weird. Making him a member of the Persian Immortals I don't, and saying that he needs to travel to this again, the calling that a cursed city, I couldn't, but again, you can correct me on that. You can explain it to me. I would love to hear more on that because I am not familiar with Middle Eastern mythology. So um, uh, I'm not going to try to explain it. Now, with Sargon, I'm trying to understand why Ubisoft didn't just um, do like a generation thing. Why isn't Sargon like the son or grandson or nephew of the prince? Because the prince needs to settle down. We all know that. Why couldn't they do that? See, that would open the door to have like this branch out. My generation could still have, or, you know, I shouldn't say my generation, because there were even teenagers who were saying that they weren't happy with this look. They wanted the dark and gritty prince. They wanted um like um Forgotten Sands prince and or that look and feel and everything. So I shouldn't just say my generation. And no, because yeah, there were people that are saying I'm 14, I bought it over on Steam and I love the game. I played it several times. What is this? So um but they had a perfect opportunity to split it where you could have Sargon have his own adventures. He could be like again, like a son, grandson, nephew, or whatever, and he could do his own adventures. And those who enjoy that, enjoy this character Sargon, play that, and then continue on with uh making games with the prince. Because people were really turned off with the idea that you could not that the prince was unplayable. I am really turned off with the fact that Sargon was injected with all of the prince's abilities. And all of that, once I saw that, I was like, what are you doing? This is just like the girl bossing thing, where the girl bossing and everything. And I didn't want to believe that. But as soon as I saw that, I'm just like, you did not just do that. Does, especially since that's not what the Persian immortals are. There are plenty of depictions of the Persian immortals, and that's the way that they would fight is not acrobatics and going around. Yeah. So, yeah. Um, so that's not correct. So, I I really think that they could have done something better with Sargon. I mean, I like the look of Sargon. I really do. I think that they could have done something different with him. You know, a generation thing would have been perfect. And I mean, there are a lot of people that'll probably say, well, a generation doesn't work anymore, and maybe not. But if you're going to reintroduce, because it's been 10 years, it might work. You know, I don't know what the premise would be, but I did see a lot of people say, this is just Assassin's Creed Mirage. And I had to look up the game and see the plot for Assassin's Creed Mirage. Yeah, it is. That's not good. I'm not sure where the thought process was on that. I mean, did they really think that they were going to get away with that? If it weren't for you meddling gamers, we could have gotten away with that. Just buy the products, just enjoy them. Don't say anything else. Just oh my gosh. Um, so pretty much as an ancient gamer, that's what I feel like anymore. I really don't have a problem with Sargon, as I've said before. I think what they could have done with him is make him like a relative of the prince. They didn't, I mean, that would have made more sense turning him into like, giving the acrobatics and the fast and agile traits to this character. That would have made more sense. That he's this great warrior and all of this stuff instead of just because the Persian immortals, we know what they are. And when people from that culture tried to explain, they were silenced. Yeah, there's a lot of accounts trying to silence people, and I have a real problem with that. Why would I buy the game if you're gonna? I mean, the game is $60 anyway. That's a lot of money for a game that is a copy of Assassin's Creed. I'd rather just buy the original. I'll just buy Assassin's Creed Mirage. Yeah. So, I mean, I want to make it perfectly clear. I'm not here to tell you not to buy the game. I'm sure that at this point people are like, "Well, I'm going to buy the game just because." That's how it usually happens, isn't it? And mainly my whole point in putting this out is that I've played the games ever since the first one came out. I was 7 years old when the first one came out, and so I have watched the games evolve. And this one I was willing to play it at first, but the more I heard about it, I was like, and especially hearing that the storyline is just a copy of another game, another Ubisoft game, it just doesn't set right with me. You could have at least tried to make an original. And so and I can't say it enough. I don't have a problem with Sargon. I kind of feel like he got cheated. Yeah. And but yeah, so pretty much in closing, um, the prince, I don't see why he needs to be. I mean, you made so many different games. Let's see, how many games altogether? Let's see, let's come up here. Where he's, yeah, because you got Shadow of the Flame. We don't look at 3D, Prince of Persia 3D. That was awful. That was a terrible game. And you got Sands of Time. So one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Oh, and I guess that one is an Android. I don't know what that one is. So we got like six games, and he's and then you have that movie where it shows him as this muscular warrior. And then you see him in this game, and he's like this. That's not what we see. We're, why is it a step backwards? That's disappointing to me. I no. And he's a non-playable character. A lot of other gamers had a real problem with that. And you could have, yeah, I don't know. I could keep going with it, questioning what the whole point was with it. And to the people who are saying, well, Prince of Persia fans are never happy. You're never going to make them happy. Look at 2008. In 2008, we were drunk on Guitar Hero and Mario Kart. Okay, and Dance Dance Party. So Prince of Persia really didn't have a chance. And also take into consideration that with a lot of games, the storyline is perfect, but the gameplay is trash. It's like the controls will lag or they just won't respond or vice versa. And so yeah. And also during that time DS games were big. And I had that Prince of Persia game on DS and it was awful. I was actually literally stuck during a boss fight and he just did not want to respond to anything. So I'm sure that there are a lot of people who still to this day, people that they hate missed because of the DS game. So you got to take that into consideration. That those games that were translated into DS and people did it, yeah. So anyway, so again, I'm sure that people will watch this and be like, well, I'm just gonna understandable, understandable. I'm just one of those people that have played the game. I've said it before many times on this. I'm one of those people that have played the game since before, and to see the prince all of a sudden turned into the damsel in distress is really, I don't understand why you would do that. And also to inject, Sargon's getting a bum rap here. How come nobody else sees it? But anyway, I'll close up here.